Hey, welcome back to the channel. So in this video, I'm gonna show you every single stats and what they do in Zenless Zone Zero. And a lot of players, they only going for the meta stats just because they don't know how to make use of the other stats. But hear me, like if you are playing every single game out there, even right now or in the future, always remember, like every single RPG games always gonna have attack, HP, defense, critical rate, and critical damage. And what you need to find out is actually the other stats. Because for a game developer, having a mainstream stats is what they want to avoid nowadays, because what makes your games unique is to add extra mechanic. So the extra mechanic is what kind of like unbalanced, usually broken. So hence why you need to understand and make use of all the other stats instead of going straight into critical rate and critical damage. Just like when you're playing Genshin Impact, the elemental mastery is actually very powerful, like probably a couple of months after the game released, and a lot of players already built into critical rate and critical damage at that point in time. So in here, the same thing happens with anomaly mastery and anomaly proficiency. But before we go there, I'm gonna explain to you what the other stats is. So to show you actually a lot of team lineup actually possible, not only the mono ice team, which is meta right now. Like always, I never want to follow the meta, because the meta depends on the person who actually started the trend. You know, if you are actually think about it, the play style is going to be different for every single player. So you gotta just have to find your play style. And as always, a game developer always want to make their game balanced. So if they add this kind of stats, they're not gonna make critical rate and critical damage the obvious broken choice. They're gonna make the other comparable to a build of critical rate and critical damage. So impact. We already learned about impact at the very beginning of the game from the first tutorial, where you are given an explanation of an extra bar underneath the enemy's HP bar, which is the daze bar. And when it is filled to full, then you're gonna inflict stun on the enemy, and they are called daze. And when they are dazed, if you use your special attack, it's gonna trigger your combo chain attack, and you're basically able to swap between your other characters and make all sorts of flashy moves. And that is a viable playstyle. So when you are playing around with games that can swap characters, keep changing characters and keep swapping into different characters every single second is going to deal insane amount of damage. And you can already find this from the chain damage. You know, there is an extra stats from your equipment, or if you go into a certain game mode in here, you are given a choice to increase your chain damage. And that basically is the damage when you are swapping into different character. They are basically casting their special attack, or sometimes they cast their ultimates, you know. That basically comes from impact. So a full stunner team is actually viable. You know, if you can keep dazing your enemies and keep swapping into different characters, you actually basically dealing damage from your chain damage instead of your basic attack damage. Now, we also have anomaly mastery, anomaly proficiency, penetration ratio, and energy regen, and they are not forcefully thrown at you into the tutorial. So we're gonna go from the energy regen first, and everything I'm gonna say to you, you can actually read in here. You can actually click this thing and read what does every single stats do. So energy is divided into three: energy regen, energy generation rate, and energy limit. So what does energy do is basically determine how fast you can get your EX special attack. So if you play this game already, like you already know that when you don't have energy, you're gonna have a gray icon, like this one is gonna be grayed out, and you will be pressing, if you press that button, then you're gonna cast your special attack. And if you have enough energy and the icon turns into red and blue like this, then you're gonna cast your EX special attack. And that all is determined by your energy. Now the energy regen determines how much energy your character actually build up every single second, whether they are on field or they are off field. So this one is very important for a support character, which is waiting on bans and only being called out when you need their AX skill, special attack, or their ultimate. Now the energy generation rate is for the on-field character. This determines the amount of energy you generate when you are actively hitting enemies. And there's also energy limit. This shows you that you will no longer gain energy if you reach this number, and you gotta make use of your energy by casting your special attack. Otherwise, it's gonna be a waste. Now we're gonna go into the penetration. So a lot of players probably don't understand what is PEN. So this is basically a penetration which actually ignores the enemy's defense. So this stat is also really good. Like you can imagine, you can actually build a team that ignores the enemy's defense. So against bosses that have high defense, this stat is going to be very important. Now, the difference between penetration ratio and penetration is that penetration reduces the enemy's defense by a fixed amount, and penetration ratio reduces the enemy's defense by a percentage amount. So if you are fighting against enemy with low defense, or when you are still early in the games, then penetration gonna reduce more defense, while if you reach the end game and fighting bosses that have insane amount of defense, then penetration ratio gonna reduce more defense, because the higher the enemy's defense, the more percentage number gonna reduce that defense. Now, anomaly mastery and anomaly proficiency, we have these two stats, and the easiest way for me to explain this to you is like, just imagine anomaly mastery as impact or critical rate, and anomaly proficiency as the critical damage. So anomaly mastery is just like impact. It's gonna increase your efficiency of building up your anomaly bar. This is shown in on the right side of the enemy's HP bar. So in the tutorial, the one thing that they didn't show you in the first one, the very beginning tutorial, is that the anomaly, the HP bar, there's a days bar underneath it, and there's an anomaly icon on the right side of it, and it only shows up if you attack the enemy with your preferred character's element. So the icon looks like a circle, and if the circle becomes full, then you will trigger your anomaly effect, which the damage is determined by your anomaly proficiency. So just like critical rate and critical damage. So if you want to increase your damage, you increase your anomaly proficiency. And there are not many ways to increase your anomaly mastery. Like so far, there is no equipment that increase your anomaly mastery. And hence why Grace is a very underrated character. She is the only one who has anomaly mastery in her core skill enhancement. Even Piper, the other anomaly character, doesn't have anomaly mastery increase. She actually increased base energy regen from her core skill enhancement. Hence why she is the S version of the anomaly character right now. There are only 2 anomaly characters so far, and I'm looking forward for anomaly characters in the future, because I am building an anomaly team from the very beginning of the game. Like I've only reached level 20, and I already know how important anomaly is in this game. Now, another thing that you need to understand is that anomaly effect is determined by your element, and you can also read it here, like electric here, and then there is ether here, and there is fire here. Every single effect is shown in here, and then physical, and then also the ice. So I'm gonna tell you every single one of them, and we also gonna go into practice and see what do they do. Now, for the electric, after you build up enough electric, like if it's full, if the circle is full, then you're gonna inflict a shock debuff on the enemy, which basically make the enemy glow in blue color, and it lasts for around 10 seconds. And while they have that debuff, every time you attack them with a cooldown of 2 seconds, they gonna receive an extra electric damage. And if the enemy is weak to electric, you're gonna interrupt their actions. This is like a mini stun. Now the ether one is actually the same, exactly the same as shock. They gotta inflict corruption, and every time they receive attack for a 2-second cooldown, they gonna get an extra ether damage. And also if they are weak to ether, they gonna get a mini stun. Now for the fire, when you get a full fire anomaly build up, you're gonna inflict burn, and burn deals continuous fire damage for a period of time. So for the whole duration of 10 seconds, the enemy gonna receive damage over time, a fire damage over time. So you can just run around without hitting the enemy, and they gonna keep receiving fire damage. And if they are weak to fire, they gonna get a mini stun again. Now for physical, it's a little bit different because physical inflicts assault and flinch. So assault interrupts the enemy and deals massive physical damage. And the damage, you can imagine this damage as kind of like magic damage. So it actually ignores the enemy's defense, and hence why the damage is insanely high. So this is determined by your anomaly proficiency number. Like the damage comes from anomaly, not your attack number. So there's also an extra effect of flinch, increases the days the target takes for a period of time. Hence, if you want to build a full stunner team, then it is also viable if you use a physical anomaly character, which is currently we have Piper Wheel here. So if you do want to build a full stunner team, then do bring one Piper Wheel if you want. But just by using 3 stunner, then you can already build your days so fast too. So yeah, you just gotta compare between those two. Now, the last one is gonna be ice, and this is why ice is currently the meta right now, because ice gives 3 extra debuff here. But the thing is that ice is not always gonna trigger. So there is I don't know if it is intended or is it bug or anything right now. But if you inflict ice attribute anomaly and if it's full, then they are not always gonna be frozen, the enemy. And the thing is that freeze immobilizes the enemy, preventing them from taking action for a certain period. And after the freeze ends, it will shatter, interrupting enemy movement and dealing ice damage. But if they never get frozen, the shatter effect will never trigger. So that's why the only benefit you get from the ice anomaly is the frostbite, increase the critical damage taken by the target for a specified duration. So this is why currently the meta build of Ellen Joe building critical rate and critical damage, with also the W engine from the gacha, which is specially made for Ellen, which increases the critical damage, is currently really strong because of this. You get an extra critical damage taken by the enemy if they are afflicted by frostbite. But like I said, we are focusing on anomaly mastery and anomaly proficiency here, so that you will understand that the meta is not always the best or it's not always good. It's just that currently they are promoting Ellen Joe and the ice lineup because they want to sell as much gacha as possible to build up their budget for the next content. So hence why if you are a free-to-play players like me, do not follow the meta. It will always change, it will always get overwritten, and it will never always gonna be good. So we're gonna go to the VR battleground here to see the effect of every single anomaly. So this is the training that a lot of players might have missed, attribute anomaly training, because every single thing that I gonna show you, you can actually learn it from here. So in here, the game actually tells you everything you need to know about anomaly. So here it is. When the character's deal attribute damage, anomaly build up is accumulated. There's an icon on the right side here of the enemy's HP bar, which is shown how much anomaly build up is currently on the enemy. And the enemy's current anomaly build up is displayed to the right of its HP. When the enemy build up reaches its limit, the enemy will be afflicted with the corresponding attribute anomaly. So if you have shock, the enemy, if you have electric, then the enemy will be afflicted by shock. Look at that, the enemy is shocked. And also, what is not shown in here is that if you have 2 or 3 different elements, then all of them will still be on the enemy. It's just hidden. They're only gonna show you the current active one. But let's say if you already put fire anomaly on the enemy to half of the full bar, like 50%, and then you change to electric, and when you hit them with fire again, it will continue from the 50%. So it is just hidden behind the enemy's anomaly bar there. It's hidden from the UI, but it is still there. So hence why if you do want to play around with anomaly, you do want to build all kinds of element on the enemy, and it will trigger discordance. We're gonna talk about this. Like this is the strongest part of the anomaly build lineup. Now, The effect of an attribute anomaly is related to the characters who inflicted anomaly build up and their contributions. So what this means is that, let's say you have two electric characters and both of them hit the enemy simultaneously. Like you keep changing between those two and inflict the electric anomaly on the enemy. Once the shock is triggered, the amount of contribution between those two characters will be calculated. So let's say you have character A, which has a high anomaly proficiency, and character B, which has very low anomaly proficiency. If you have character B contribute 80% of the anomaly build up to the enemy, and the character A, who has high anomaly, only contribute 20% of the anomaly build up to your enemy, the damage that the enemy will receive will be low, because your character who has low anomaly is the one who contributes the most to building up the anomaly. So if you do want to play around with anomaly, do think about the character that gonna inflict or build up the anomaly, because those are the characters that is going to determine the damage output later on. Now we're gonna see here, if I keep building the anomaly in here, there, the enemy gonna get shocked. Now this is what shock do. Like every time I attack the enemy, they gonna receive an extra blue damage. Look at that. But it's not gonna always trigger because there's a 2 seconds cooldown there. So it doesn't work if you keep attacking the enemy. Like multi-hit characters gonna be really broken if it triggers for every single multi-hit that you do. But yeah, this is basically shock. And NB is really good in inflicting this shock. Like you can see there, like it's a free character that you can inflict shock very easily. But as always, like if you can get an S character, then you will be able to inflict shock much better, much faster. Like Grace, you know, Grace is a specialized into building up anomaly like this. Now here is what a lot of players missed out, because this is what is going to be your elemental reaction disorder. So they call it disorder in this game. Applying another type of attribute anomaly to an enemy that has already been afflicted with one overrides the original and causes this disorder effect. The disorder effect is calculated based on the original anomaly, dealing additional damage and accumulating days. So here's the human explanation for this. So like I said, when you are building up anomaly on 2 different elements, it's gonna be stored on the enemy outside of their UI. So if you put fire on the enemy and then put electric on the enemy, once you trigger the electric, let's say you trigger the shock, I've told you that the shock gonna last for around 10 seconds. I don't know, I think it's more like 5 seconds, but let's think about it as 10 seconds. It's gonna last for 10 seconds, and then while in that 10 seconds when they have the shock effect, if you trigger the fire anomaly, then the shock will turn into disorder. And the disorder damage is determined by the anomaly proficiency of the shock character, the character who put that shock on the enemy. So if you do want to trigger the disorder, do keep in mind that the first character who wants to trigger the anomaly is the one with the highest anomaly proficiency as much as you can, you know. So for example, we currently have 2 anomaly characters, which is Piper Wheel and Grace, and you do want to build up Piper or Grace's anomaly first before you change into other character and trigger their anomaly, you know. But you need to do that very fast within the 10 seconds of the duration of that anomaly being still sticking on your enemy. So we're gonna try it here. I'm gonna inflict the shock on the enemy, and I'm gonna change to here, blue. Like you can see, like the anomaly now shown that we have physical anomaly on the enemy here. Now if I change to NB again, you can see that the shock is continuing. Now if I trigger this Billy here, no, I'm not gonna change because I want to see this. Now we already triggered the assault there. Now if I trigger the shock, it's gonna trigger the disorder. Look at that, it's a white number. So I'm gonna try doing it, and again maybe you missed it because of the chain combo there going out. There's shock. And if I trigger this assault, it's gonna trigger the disorder. And because NB have a higher anomaly proficiency than Billy, the damage of the disorder is actually bigger when I did it the second time. And that is basically disorder. And like I said, the disorder and the anomaly damage comes from the anomaly proficiency, so it doesn't determine by the enemy's defense. It can just basically imagine it as like kind of like a magic damage, which probably in the future, like a different enemy is gonna have a different anomaly resistance, you know. But right now, anomaly is insanely strong. So I'm gonna show you. You've already seen how shock works just now. I'm gonna show you the ether. I'm gonna show you the fire, and I'm gonna show you the physical. I don't have the ice in here, but you can already imagine the ice later. I'm gonna try the ice later on. So we will see this one first. So I'm gonna change the enemy so it won't be able to do anything to me. You know, it's just gonna stand there taking hit, and with its same amount of HP, we're gonna build up the ether anomaly in here. Look at that. Oh yeah, another thing that you need to think about is that if you have like Nicole, a character with an ether element, if you hit the enemy with her normal attack, look, it's corrupted. Now corrupted, every time I attack the enemy, you can see there's a red and blue number coming out every 2 seconds or so, you know. So it's not gonna always trigger. This is also the same thing that happens with shock, you know. But for Nicole, like here's Nicole. Because Nicole is an ether element, if I keep hitting the enemy using her basic attack, it's not gonna build up the ether anomaly on the enemy. Hence why, if you do want to build up anomaly on the enemy, you do need to use the proper element, you know. For example, for Nicole here, you do need to actually make Nicole attack the enemy using the ether element, and then she will build up the ether anomaly on the enemy using this one. Okay, there you go. There's the corrupted. So if I just keep hitting the enemy using my basic physical attack, it's never gonna increase the anomaly build up. Now if I change it to the fire, this is what fire do. There, we change the fire, and Lucy here is very good in inflicting burn. You just need to hit the enemy with 2 hits of this, and the build up is really fast if you have the EX special attack. So we're gonna build up the burn again in case you missed it, and you can see that this burn effect will keep dealing damage per second to your enemy without you doing anything, you know. So that is burn. And now we have the physical, and this is the best part because we have Viper here who has a really good you know, physical anomaly build up. You can see that assault there, it's straight up deal 2000 damage in here, where I'm actually hitting for just 100 damage. The assault damage that comes out feels like 2000 damage there. So this is a very viable build for you. Instead of going with the meta, you can actually build an anomaly lineup team that you can deal insane amount of damage by using your anomaly there, assault. Yes, and also the flinch, like the enemy is currently glowy yellow in color, and every time I attack them, it's gonna build up days more often. This is the flinch effect from the you know, physical anomaly effect. So we're gonna go and see why ice anomaly is not recommended by me. We're gonna go to the character that has ice. I'm gonna try with Lycon here. Let's see. So here is Lycon. So if I use hold attack, it's gonna deal ice damage to the enemy. So I'm just gonna keep inflicting ice damage to the enemy. Look, I built up the ice anomaly and it got triggered just now. The UI shown that the anomaly is finished. Look at that. It's almost full circle right now. And if I build again, it triggers. It goes into 0. It actually triggers the anomaly, but it doesn't freeze the enemy. So you can see the enemy is kind of like, you know, chilled right now. You can see the frozen effect on the enemy, but it is not frozen. So the frostbite effect is actually applied, the one that increased the enemy's critical damage taken. Look at that. This increased enemy critical damage taken, but it's not gonna stop the enemy and freeze them, and it's not gonna deal the shatter damage. So that's why the ice anomaly effect is only ever gonna be useful for a critical damage lineup build, you know, because the shatter damage is not always gonna get triggered. So if you build anomaly ice a build for your character, the damage not gonna happen because you rarely ever gonna shatter the enemy, you know. And even if it happens, like, you know, there are no ice anomaly character right now. Yeah, see, the guy never goes into frozen mode. It should be, if I go into free combat, it's gonna be, should be much easier to apply this thing, the frozen effect. Let's see if I can trigger the frozen effect on the enemy. Nope. Where's the frozen? Yeah, no frozen. So it's really hard. Like if you play with the ice character, like you can try this in your own free time. Like if you have been playing with ice character, you will have noticed like sometimes the enemy gonna be frozen, sometimes they are not, you know. And that's why I don't recommend going with the ice anomaly lineup. But this is what I'm gonna show you, like the most important part that I'm gonna show you, which is a Viper, and then Grace, and maybe Anton. Yes, Anton. Let's go. So I'm gonna show you the stats. You know, the anomaly proficiency. You've already heard the theory, like the anomaly proficiency gonna make use of the first character who inflict the anomaly on the enemy, and I'm gonna actually show you how it works right now. So if you already understand, you might already skip this part, like it's gonna take quite some time to test this. But if you do want to take a look at how it is in practice, then yeah, stay in the video. So let's see. We're gonna build up the physical anomaly in here. There, assault, 1600 damage assault. Now if I go with Grace, because I don't have Grace at level 20, like my Grace is lower level, like that is 43 damage per electric. So she's gonna deal lower damage than my Viper, and as expected, because Assault deals insane amount of damage compared to the other elemental proficiency. Now here's the thing, if I inflict the shock and then I inflict the physical, so I'm gonna build up the physical first now. Oh no, I actually triggered the assault. I'm gonna inflict. Okay, so if I trigger the shock first and then after that trigger the assault, I'm gonna make use of Grace's stat for the disorder. So I'm gonna trigger the electric shock there, and then I'm gonna trigger the physical. There is disorder, but you cannot see the number. I'm gonna try it again. So the number is got. There, the disorder, 1134. So that disorder comes because the enemy currently have flinch, and then I triggered the shock again with Grace. You know, so they got the disorder there, and the damage comes from Piper's assault. Now if I trigger the shock here, no, I'm gonna build up the shock. Okay, that's nice. Okay. I'm gonna slowly build this up. Like I said, it's gonna take quite some time because this is a testing. Now I'm gonna build up shock, while shock is in effect, I'm gonna build up the assault and you will see the disorder damage here. There, 457. Hence why the disorder coming from Piper is much higher than from Grace, because my Piper is at level 20 and my Grace is at level 10. And I actually build up my Piper with equipment, etc. So hence why she actually deals more disorder damage compared to Grace. Now, this time I'm gonna show you the contribution. So if I contribute more on this one, Anthem, and then trigger the shock using Grace, it's gonna deal very low disordance damage, because the contribution coming from the shock comes mostly from Anton, which is of low level. Oh my god. Yeah, because I actually built anomaly build for my Piper. It's really easy for my Piper to actually trigger anomaly, and hence why I'm making this video, you know, to show you how strong anomaly can be. Now if I trigger this, apply am shocked, and then I trigger the physical assault, the disorder is going to be insanely low. Yeah, you didn't see the number again because it's blocked by the assault, but you can already understand, you know, like here I'm gonna show you the shock damage that I can get. 50 there. That's the shock damage from Grace alone. Now if I do Anton here, okay, but trigger it with Grace. Okay, this is how much shock damage I deal. Look, 13. See, 13. So this is much more clearer. This is clearer than the disorders. You can see the connection between contribution of each character in terms of building up your anomaly and disorders damage. So it's not gonna be a good idea to actually build a mono element team, because in the mono element team you don't know who contributes the most. Like the one who contributes the most is most likely gonna be the one you have on the field, the character on the field, and most of the time all of you players use attack type character on the field most of the time. So they don't have high anomaly proficiency, hence why until now not many players know that anomaly can deal insane amount of damage. You can probably by now see another YouTuber. I think in the future a lot of YouTubers gonna discuss about this. They're gonna come out with insane amount of anomaly damage, because even in this test, look at this. Like I deal single and double digit damage, but my disorder and my anomaly damage actually goes into 4 digits. Now you can imagine if I actually deal my normal damage like in the 3 digits or 4 digits, then my disorder damage will be able to reach like 5 or 6 digits in the future, you know. So hence why keep this in mind. Okay, this video is all about showing you all the stats and also how important anomaly and disorder is in this game, and I do hope in the future to see much more versatility in building up new team lineup instead of following the meta. As always, I, Vivid, never want to follow the meta. So yeah, that's it for this video, guys. So thanks for watching and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.